Danielle, good to see you. Welcome to Popternative.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on Popternative.
I feel like it's so interesting, right? Because, joining a show that's already been established and people kind of seen a full season of it and we know and develop these characters. What's that like for you? Does it feel like the new kid on the block? Does it feel like you're just kind of like you don't even think about that? You just go in? Like, what's that like with you with Found specifically?
No, I definitely felt like the new kid on the block. I was so nervous, and to not play any other character for 7 seasons and then go in and play a character that's so vastly different than the character I played for 7 seasons was definitely scary and nerve-wracking. But felt great when I showed up because this cast and crew welcomed me with open arms. So in the end, I also too, or in that moment, I was also like, okay, I'm here to play this character, stick with who she is, this ambitious, mysterious woman. So I tried to just focus on that and not let the nerves take over.
I find it interesting too because you mentioned, Station 19, and I feel like, you can answer this with that and you can answer this with Found, but it's interesting because you look at a lot of these shows where it's like drama and like it's the audiences at kind of the edge of their seat figuring out what's going on and almost playing like a detective. Are you ever conscious of the audience member watching these shows while you're making them, or does that kind of happen afterwards? I feel like as an actor, you try not to, but maybe sometimes it's hard not to. Do you ever think about the audience?
I definitely think about the audience because I've come from a show that had such a passionate and involved audience, and
That's an understatement.
and the found audience is the same. Like the fandom that we have, the Station 19 fandom is the best fandom in the world, just hands down. But the found fandom is amazing, and the
Yep.
fact that they're joining together is wonderful. I don't let it influence how I play the character, if that's what you mean. I'll never say, okay, I'm going to do this because this is what the fans want. I do stay true to the writing,
Yep.
at a fault. Sometimes people are like, oh my God, why did that person do that? We hate them now. And I'm like, it's what's in the writing. I've got to listen to what the writers are wanting and how the story unfolds. But I do, on Found at least, get to watch it as a fan myself. The show is
Mhm.
so fantastic that when I read the scripts, I mean, there were times I was like, oh my gosh, like audibly gasp at just things that I discovered. And then, yes, when I'm on set filming, I have to put that aside and go, okay, I know I'm a fan of the show and I want things to be played a certain way, but how does this need to be played and do that? So it
Yeah.
impacts it to some extent.
That's so interesting. And it's interesting too, because specifically with the episodes where your character is really involved in Found for season two, I'm wondering what that kind of script to screen journey is like. Because I feel like it differs and even differs from Station 19, like specific seasons, because it was an up and down kind of roller coaster ride for your character. But what is that kind of like specifically with Found? Like reading these scripts and then seeing it kind of come to life on screen. Because I always thought that was fascinating too, right? That journey specifically.
It is, and also because things can change so drastically. They always say the show is rewritten or is written 3 times in the writing process while it's actually being filmed and then in editing. So for me too, I actually haven't seen any of my episodes, so I know what I read and I know what I filmed, but I have no idea what's actually going to air, and things can always slightly twist and turn. So that'll be interesting to see how that actually plays out in real time with the fans. Because on like Station 19, I got to watch all the cuts before they aired. I
Yeah.
got to know what was coming. I don't know that with Found.
It's always
Things
gonna
might be
be
different.
it's always gonna be a weird feeling of even with Station 19 where like you do know what like you've seen things and everything and then they air, but it's kind of one of those things where it's in your hands and then it
Yeah.
disseminates to the world and it's out of your hands. Do you think about that? Do you ever get used to that feeling being kind of storyteller?
You have to be used to it or you'll go crazy. I mean, you have to know that basically, as an actor, this is my job, stay in my lane. My actor is to deliver what the writers wrote and to have faith in the actual process that the
Yep.
editors and the producers are going to deliver an amazing episode of television. Like
Yep.
that's all you can hope for. It's probably the why I've gravitated so much more towards directing. I'm still wanting to do it all and but I love this new venture I've started to go down because I'm getting to actually be there from start to finish, which is something that I am craving as an actor. But I definitely know when I'm acting, that is my job and that is what I do. And I'm very, very grateful to be parts of shows that really made amazing content and I could trust to make amazing content.
It's so interesting because you mentioned the directing, and I feel like a lot of people naturally now are just wearing many hats in the entertainment industry and kind of doing a lot of things and have a lot of stories they want to tell and they want to go behind the camera and everything. So I find it interesting too because I feel like you work on a show like Station 19 or Found, and there's so many moving parts, and it's like a well-oiled machine, right, so to speak. I'm sure it really does kind of have quite like even when you're acting, you probably have a lot of these like creative questions, right? Like what's going on over there? Like how does that happen? I feel like do you feel like that happened too? Like you're kind of that kind of directing bug happened being on set a lot on Station 19? Would you say they kind of had to do with each other?
Absolutely. I think curiosity is actually the number one thing that makes you want to really understand how everything ticks and works, though. And not everyone has that curiosity. It's not one's not better than the other. It's just I've always had that curiosity. I've always wanted to sit at Village, in no matter which is where everything's filmed and they sit behind the monitors. I've always loved to sit back and see how it all works.
Yeah.
But I have had to step out of that as an actor and just go, no, no, I'm not. I need to not be a part of that. But it's always fascinated me, and absolutely being a part of a show that has so many moving parts, as everything does. I mean, almost every show I've been part of or movie I've been a part of has 200 plus crew members
Yeah.
that are making everything work and happen. And I think directing and shadowing directors has really brought a new respect for the fact that, like, so many conversations are had and discussions are had before that one little decision is made.
Yep.
Even something as simple as the color of the folder I'm holding in my arms. And I think there's a respect that you have as an actor when you start realizing how much thought actually was put into that thing on the day. And then you on the day can trust the process even more because you know the thought and energy was put into it.
That's so good that you said that because that's my favorite thing because I'm also creative as well. I'm a filmmaker as well. And I find it interesting too because it's like when I started Popternative, a lot of my questions, have you noticed, are very like craft oriented, right? Because that's what I'm interested in. Because
Yeah.
I love the, conversations and little kind of choices that went into that when we see like our favorite movies or TV shows and we're like,
Yeah.
whoa, I love that scene or I love that character. I love those 5 or 6 stories or thoughts that kind of happen sporadically, right? That led to what we see on screen, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It's a really cool feeling.
It is. And what's crazy is some things are really not that deep either. Like some things are like sometimes fans are like, why did they do that one thing? And I was like, honestly, that decision was not a big decision on the day. That was like an in the moment instinctual decision. Whereas all these other 12 things were actually really well thought out. So sometimes it varies. But going back to the other thing you said too about also not needing like that world of exposition, right? When you're on camera and so many
Yes.
things have to be delivered to the audience. Going just to found, what I love so much about the show is not everything has to be beaten until you understand it.
Yeah.
It is a show that really treats its audience extremely smart and goes, we're going to take you on this ride and you just need to have faith that in the end you're going to love what the payoff is.
Strap
And it is
in.
what?
Strap in, right?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And so I really am enjoying that because that is very different than Station, where
Yep.
Station didn't ever have to like, keep telling you things, but it was very much rooted in this like, this happened, this is the result, this is where we're going. And
Yep.
Found is so rooted in mystery that it's very
Yeah.
different from a creative style too.
100%. And two quick questions before we wrap up as well. Just getting back to Station 19. I mean, at some point, there's going to be a time to reflect on the journeys of your character on that show season after season and the, you know, responses from the fandoms about certain things that happen with your character and specific relationships and specific like events on the show. What's that been like kind of looking back in terms of kind of learning experiences on Station 19 from an acting perspective that you've taken to Found specifically?
I think I just grew so much as an actor in those 7 years. I think because getting to really play a character for that long, you just get to really hone in on your talent and your skill and just your ability to do so many things, even if it's just learning monologues in 2 seconds because you just got a new pages, or really delving into the depth of a character because you have the time to do it. And kind of learning how I can do that in a more truncated version. Whereas hopping on to Found and playing Heather, I was go, okay, what is this person's past? Who do I think she is? How do I need to portray her? What feels instinctually the most right? I've really just honed in on those instincts, which has been fantastic to do. And with every character I've played on every role I've ever had, I've grown as a person because I, as an actor, have to be able to put myself in that person's shoes. And I will always feel empathy. I think you have to, as an actor, even if you're playing good or bad characters, you have to learn to have empathy and justification for their actions. And I think that's something going to Maya that made Maya, even though she was so flawed, it made you be able to understand her because I was able to go, no, she thought she was doing the right thing and the best thing. And I think there's a similarity even with Heather in that this character really believes, even though she might be doing the wrong thing, as is Gabby on Found. Everyone believes, if you trust and believe when you're playing a character that you as them are saying, I'm right in what I'm doing, then it really resonates with, I think, audiences, and they feel connected with you in a deeper way because we all think we're doing the right thing, right?
Yeah,
And sometimes we're not.
well, that's so interesting. And last question before we wrap up, actually,
Yeah.
because what you said that is it's interesting because you look at, Station 19 and you look at Found, and it happens with other characters and it happens with your character as well. But it's like this self-reflection thing interests me, right? Where all these characters in some episodes are trying to figure things out and going day by day with life, right? So I'm wondering from an acting perspective, is it more fun or more challenging playing these lost characters doing self-reflection? Because from a viewer perspective, Danielle, they don't know they're lost, which I find really interesting at times.
Well, that's the beauty in it. No one ever knows they're lost when they are usually. They're trying to
Yeah.
figure it out. I think the challenge is what's fun. I think characters that are flawed and don't understand what's going on and make mistakes, they're challenging to play as actors, but they're so much fun because you're getting to discover the character as it goes on.
Yeah, that's really well said. And congratulations on season 2 of Found. Thank you so much for coming on the show. So great chatting with you. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. This was so much fun.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.